Why am I dressed like this? Because we are talking about some snakery today.
Oh yeah, there's a snake in the henhouse, mama, and we're gonna talk about it. However, being a hater comes so effortlessly to me that I want to make this a little more of a challenge by forcing myself to love. So in this video, I will be discussing the Cait Corrain controversy from my perspective as a person of color currently studying for a master's in publishing. But I will also be putting the spotlight on books that deserve it. So I will be talking about 10 books that I can't wait to read in 2024 and one book that I will never read and why. Guess which one? Bet you can't guess which one. I bet you think you can, but you can't. Don't worry, we will talk about the elephant in the room, but not quite in the way that you'd expect. This video is gonna have twists and turns because I'm a twisted little snake. Anyway, I'm Solara Santa Ea. You don't know who I am, and most of the time, neither do I. However, I do have an English degree, and by the end of the summer, I'll have a master's in publishing, and I have far too many opinions on writing, literature, the publishing industry, and all kinds of book-related nonsense to keep to myself. I talk about up-and-coming news in the publishing industry, share writing and editing tips, or dive right into whatever current's sweeping through the world of books, like today, when we're talking about new releases and that. Anyone who's met me can tell you I'm not exactly Miss Poppet Lock at keeping on topic when it comes to keeping up with the hot new releases. Finding 10 releases that I was actively excited about in 2024 takes some digging. Fortunately, I had a little push back in October when we read an issue of Publishers Weekly in class, and for those of you who don't know, Publishers Weekly is exactly what it sounds like. It's a magazine for people in the industry, and it talks about publishing trends, marketing, legislative action, you know, like the big Simon Schuster Penguin Random House Monopoly case that happened a while back. That will probably be a video of its own one day, and I will bust out the snakeskin again because the girls were hissing. The issue I happened to read featured an article about the Frankfurt Book Fair, and for those of you who don't know, it's the biggest trade fair for books. I'll have that linked in the description so you can have that fun for yourself. So quite a few books on this list came from that PW article, and most of the other ones I found from a quick poke around on Google and Goodreads. Why do I hear boss music? Anyway, if you're looking for information about upcoming releases, Goodreads can be... What is that? Number 10, The Volcano Daughters by Gina Maria Balivrera. This is a novel set in 1920s El Salvador following a girl who becomes the oracle to a dictator, meeting her long-lost sister in the process. The story seems to span many years, picking up when the sisters are adults and they escape from El Salvador, losing one another once again. However, the summary I read promises that they will reunite at the least likely moment. This is a release from Pantheon, an imprint of Penguin Random House, and Gina Maria Balivrera has an MFA in prose from the University of Michigan, and while she has been published in anthologies before, this is her debut novel. The initial setting, a community of indigenous women living in the shadow of a volcano, really pulled me in, especially because one of my works in progress features a similar setting, so I'm excited to see what Balivrera does with it. I'm Latina myself, like Balivrera, however, I will be the first to say that I know nothing about El Salvador. Like, I've taken a few classes on Latin American history, but El Salvador never really seems to come up. And I'm not expecting this book to be like a textbook to teach me all about it, but I'm hoping I might come away with some interesting questions about El Salvador research on my own. However, more importantly than any of that, this seems like a tense and exciting story, and I can't wait to jump in. Number 9, The Stone Witch of Florence by Anna Raish. According to the PW article, The Stone Witch of Florence is about a woman who uses magic gemstones to investigate crimes in Florence during the plague. It's coming from Park Row Books, an imprint of HarperCollins, in fall of 2024. I'm usually not the biggest historical fiction person. However, between the crime and the plague and the magic, I can't imagine this boring me like historical fiction tends to. Also, I really like Italy as a setting, you know, theoretically. I've never actually been there, but I've had spaghetti at Olive Garden, so I think I get the idea. I actually thought my biological grandmother was Italian for most of my life, but like 2 years ago I casually mentioned it in front of the grandma that I actually know, and she like turned around from the front of the car to look back at me, to look me in the eyes, and she was like, Betty? Which isn't a very Italian name, but to be fair, I didn't know the bitch was named Betty. I never met her because she spent most of my life in jail. Apparently, it turns out she's Polish. I guess I got a bit of Slav girl summer in me. Number 8, The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. This is the debut novel from game designer Holly Gramazio about a woman whose attic keeps generating infinite husbands and her life shifts around them. It sounds really interesting, and I hope Holly makes a video game version of it someday because it seems like it'd be fun to play through. I don't have a ton to say about this one other than the fact that its absolutely bonkers concept has captivated me, and I need to see where Gramazio is going with this. I will say that the first thing I thought of when reading the title and the synopsis was The Wives by Taryn Fisher. If you haven't seen Withcindy's review of that, you gotta get on it. It's a wild ride. The book is coming out April 2nd from Doubleday, another imprint of Penguin Random House. I mentioned the monopoly suit against them earlier. Let's just say it happened for a reason. Number 7, One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon. Described as Get Out meets Stepford Wives, this follows a couple who moves to a black utopian society called Liberty, where instead of justice and activism forming the heart of the community's values, residents seem suspiciously content to relax at this fancy spa. Now, I actually have a short story up on my website right now called Lemon Squares in All Dimensions that's also sort of a play on Stepford Wives, so that comparison jumped out to me right away. I'll have the story linked in the description for anyone who's curious. This book is set to release on June 11th, 2024 from Not, which is, you guessed it, another imprint of Penguin Random House. Take a shot every time I say an imprint of Penguin Random House in this video. You'll die. I haven't read The Sun is Also a Star, which is probably the most popular book by Nicola Yoon, but I have read Everything, Everything. I actually ended up seeing the movie first before I knew anything about it, but I could have told you in seconds it was a book adaptation. The book is written in first person, and the movie incorporates a lot of Maddie's narration and her little illustrated asides, especially right at the beginning, and those struck me as directorial choices that would not have been made outside of a book adaptation. The movie was pretty okay, and I assumed the book would be even better, so I checked it out from the school library the next week. For those of you who don't know, it's about this girl whose immune system is so weak that she can never leave the house, but she falls in love with the boy next door and wants to live life to the fullest with him. It's very John Green-coded, quirky, sickly nerd romance, but you know what? Quirky, sickly nerds need love too, and when I was in high school, this hit like a brick. There's a twist that I don't want to ruin if you haven't read it yet, but I have only come to like it less. However, I still enjoyed Yoon's prose, and I'm excited to see what direction she takes it in when making her adult debut. I would say Yoon's YA voice skewed towards the baby's first literary fiction side of things, and it sounds like a read when I say it out loud, but it's not meant to insult her writing at all. What I mean is that authors like Yoon and John Green seem to favor a lot of literary allusions, a lot of big words. Their characters are usually gifted kids, TM, and the books overall seem to skew to a slightly more pretentious readership than the average YA romance. And again, I'm not trying to drag anyone here. I was exactly in this demographic. I ate these books up. I feel like Yoon was already straddling the gap between YA and literary fiction. I'm especially excited to see where she's going now that she is writing for adults. That's obviously not to say that YA writing is inherently inferior to books written for adults. In a world where both The Hunger Games and 50 Shades of Grey exist, I think we can all see that's not true. I just mean that YA is written for a different audience with a different set of expectations, and I'm interested to see where Yoon goes moving forward. Yoon's writing was already good, which is what charges this artistic pivot with potential. Writing for an adult audience could give her more freedom to do some literary experimentation. Having read Everything, Everything, it's clear that Yoon is very eloquent as a writer, that she's well-read, and interested in playing around with form a little, so that's something I'd like to see from her. Number 6, Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan. Okay, so if I could just time out for a second here. I wrote most of the script off the top of my head, and then I went back in to fill in the details about the author and the publisher and the dates and that sort of thing. And I just want to say, I did not pay attention to imprints at all when I came up with my list. I want to start with that. I want you to know that right off the bat, because Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan is published on May 21st, 2024 by Doubleday, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. I promise you that I did not make this video with the intention of just busting it open for Penguin Random House. I'm not a sleeper agent for Penguin Random House. I'm not affiliated with Penguin Random House. I'm not a stan of Penguin Random House. I don't know why this is how it is, but this is how it is. I'm sorry. Let's keep going. Anyway, Lies and Weddings is about a secretly broke Earl whose Hong Kong supermodel mother, that's a tongue twister, tells him to seduce a rich lady at his sister's, I almost said funeral. At his sister's funeral? That'd be hilarious if this was a Love in the Time of Cholera crossover, but it's not, unfortunately. She wants him to seduce a rich lady at his sister's wedding. However, he's in love with the girl next door. There's all this intrigue and romance, but then things really kick off when the volcano explodes and everything literally goes up in flames. I'm familiar with Kevin Kwan, as most of you probably are, because of Crazy Rich Asians. If you're a broke bitch like me, buy Crazy Rich Asians. It's the best vacation you will ever be able to go on for $15 or less. I had the truly decadent experience of reading this outdoors in the sun while enjoying delicious chocolate ice cream for the first time. Reading the book for the first time, not eating chocolate ice cream for the first time. I do that all the time. The point is, sitting outside those concrete steps by the dining hall in Wisconsin while a bunch of sweaty white boys played Ultimate Frisbee 2 feet away, that was my lavish trip to Singapore, and I loved it. The book is lush, it's vivid, it's funny. It tries to cram in way too many plot twists right at the end and calls a lot of attention to its own charm and cleverness, but it's eminently enjoyable. I have a full review up on Goodreads if you want to see my full opinion on it, but for now I'm just going to say I enjoyed Crazy Rich Asians, but I really couldn't get into the sequel. I don't even know if I read the third one, but I know I tried with the second one, but a gun to my head, I cannot tell you a single thing that happens in that book. I guess that means that it's not bad enough for me to hold a grudge against, so that's something. But with one hit out of 3, you might be wondering why I'm so excited for another book from Kevin Kwan. Well, this isn't part of the Crazy Rich series, so it gives Kwan a fresh start while also playing in similar territory, hopefully playing to his strengths. It seems to promise another lavish, over-the-top tropical setting, and even, gasp, murder. That's right, according to the quote that I saw on the Penguin Random House website, Kevin Kwan unfurls a juicy, hilarious, sophisticated, and thrillingly plotted story of love, money, murder, sex, and the lies we tell about them all. With murder involved, I would be surprised if this one doesn't turn out to be even twistier and turnier than Crazy Rich Asians. I didn't really like the over-the-top melodramatic soap opera twist in Crazy Rich Asians, but that's just because I felt like they got excessive and they weren't really necessary, especially when Rachel was concerned. However, in a story about murder weddings, we need the drama, mama. Bring it on, Kwan. I hope the murderer pops out of the cake like a stripper and someone gets thrown in the volcano as a human sacrifice. I don't think that will happen, but I am excited to see what Kwan does with the darker story. Hopefully he writes without losing his signature bombast. Number 5. Plastic by Scott Guild. Did you come away from the Barbie movie wishing it was a dystopian literary novel? Probably not, but if you did, Plastic seems like it might scratch that itch. Set to come out the day before Valentine's Day from Pantheon, which is, say it with me, an imprint of Penguin Random House. Plastic, according to Synopsis, follows a plastic girl in a plastic world. Literally, everything is made of plastic and people are these breakable figurines. Aaron, the main character, is searching for something real in a world that's being torn apart by warfare, terrorism, and environmental collapse. I was excited just by the premise, but everything I've found out about this since has only made me more excited. It has a blurb from Charles Yu that says the book features a world constructed from strange and wondrous materials, a world that is deeply strange and deeply familiar, with language to match. Funny, broken, sad, and beautiful. Evocative and highly original, Plastic is a captivating debut. I've read a couple things by Charles Yu, like his short story Standard Loneliness Package and the novel How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe, so getting a quote from him is definitely a good way to get me intrigued. This is a debut novel from Scott Guild, who has a PhD in English from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He was also the guitarist and lyricist for a band called New Collisions, which I'd never heard of, but apparently it was a new wave band that really took off sort of towards the end of the 2000s, early 2010s. Scott Guild is releasing a companion album for Plastic, and depending on how much I like the book, I definitely can see myself checking that out. I do a little original composition myself, mostly for my characters. I like to make little themes, so I'm always excited to see an author incorporate original music into their works. Number 4, The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is a literary horror novel, Monica Kim's debut, about a Korean-American woman's descent into madness and murder. Judging from the blurbs as well as statements that Kim herself has made, this is a very psychological, feminist exploration of themes of objectification and the stereotypes Asian American women are forced to conform to. This is coming out on June 25th from Erewhon Books, an imprint of Kensington Publishing. Oh, did you think you were safe? You're never safe. Not in this cold, cold world. The Penguin runs everything. People also ask, who owns Kensington Publishing? Is Kensington part of Penguin Random House? Kensington is believed to be the only publishing company with 3 generations of family management. The staff totals over 85 employees and, in addition to its internal sales team, Kensington has a distribution agreement with Penguin Random House Publisher Services Global Sales Force. Book is one I hadn't heard of at all until I started Googling new releases to make this video, and similar to The Husbands, I don't really have much to say about it aside from the fact that the premise is very intriguing, and I'm always excited to see authors of color tackle themes of marginalization and oppression in novel ways. This seems like it's going to be a very thought-provoking, interesting, and impactful read. Number 3, Dream Counts by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Apparently, I cannot get enough of these goddamn books from Penguin and Random House. That's right, we have another book from Not, which as we all know by now, is an imprint of Penguin and Random House. I should have called this whole video 10 books you can buy from Penguin and Random House, plus one from Scrappy Underdog's second biggest trade publisher in the US, HarperCollins. And then I should have followed up with a live stream on my second channel, Solara Santa Ea's Penguin Random House Stan account, where I get the Penguin Random House logo tattooed on my ass. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is a world-renowned Nigerian author, and her next novel, Dream Count, is set to debut in fall of 2004. No, it's not. Fall of 2024. I'm living in the past. According to her agent, as quoted in that PW article I keep referencing, Dream Count is about 4 women with interconnected stories learning to love and live on their own terms. Finding out about this release made me realize that I tend to subconsciously assume, like, if I've read their book in school, they are going to be dead. Why did it never occur to me that a woman who put out a book in 2013 has a better chance of being alive today than, you know, Shakespeare or something? I had the same conundrum with Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I could not believe it when I found out he died in 2014. 2014. That man might have known what the Harlem Shake is. That's harrowing. That just doesn't seem right. The first book I read by Adichie was Purple Hibiscus in my senior year of high school. It's about this shy young Nigerian girl with a father who is incredibly successful, highly respected, and deeply abusive. It can be a very troubling read, but it resonated with me deeply, and I can't recommend it enough. I also read Americana for a college class, and it didn't stick with me as much, but the fact that I read it at all means it must have been pretty good, because I started having these terrible eye issues in college, and I had to be, let's say, selective about the readings that I did and didn't do, because I could not physically keep up with all of them. In fact, I think the only class that I did every single reading for was my class in Nabokov, because I had been fiending to get into that one since my freshman year, and I'll be damned if I let my mortal shell get in the way of letting me read Lolita. I love literature deeply, so the thought that I could just go out and pick up a book by a master of the craft like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who is sharing this earth and this lifetime with me, is so exciting. I mean, her work will still be talked about in decades to come, if not centuries, and who knows? This could be the best book yet. This could be part of history. Number 2, The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste. Elephant in the room, I thought I lost you. So, what's the deal with racism? In case you're not terminally online or in a book drama, I mean, this is the wrong channel for you, but that's besides the point. Recently, a white author named Cait Corrain, who is set to debut in 2024, was caught review bombing other debut authors, including ones from her own publishing imprint and a significant number of people of color. Cait did all this while featuring characters of color prominently in her own work and seeming to market herself as an ally. Initially, it wasn't clear who the review bomber was, and in this moment of confusion, Cait tried to pretend that she was actually a victim of whatever horrible person was doing that crazy stuff. But then once that house of cards collapsed, she tried to be like, well, I don't know, the Raylos did it. And the Raylos, who have done many things, did not do that. You see, Katie Pie was having her Hamilton moment. She might have written her way into this mess, but by God would she write her way out. She created the sock puppet Discord account for a Raylo stan named Lily, who supposedly was such a devoted friend of Cait's that she heard about Cait's insecurities and decided to make them right for her by review bombing all the authors that she was worried about being outshone by. But that's not all. Feeling betrayed by Cait's angry reaction to her selfless act of friendship, Lily decided to enter her reputation era. That's right, she goes from being Cait's, "Ooh, I'm so sorry, concerned friend," to straight-up villain monologuing in seconds. By the way, the timestamps were also noticeably faked, so even if someone happened to fall for Cait's 10 out of 10 scripting skills, it was still pretty obvious that this conversation was made up. There was also the matter of Lily having seemingly no other social media accounts and vanishing off the face of the earth the minute Cait was done confronting her. A lot of Cait's old Raylo friends said that none of them had ever heard of Lily, and then this one absolute mad lad, gender neutral, comes in on Twitter with a steel chair and proved conclusively that Lily did not exist by going through their archive they made of every tweet ever featuring the word Raylo. This Raylo stan on Twitter is our generation's equivalent of the Library of Alexandria. And I cannot thank them enough for their service, especially swooping in this drama and telling Cait, no bitch, no Raylo croissant for you, you lied, you stole, you get nothing. So with literally no way to wriggle herself out of it this time, Cait decided to do the right thing and take accountability. By which I mean she mostly vented about her mental health issues for a bit and then apologized. Also, if she genuinely felt sorry for what she did, creating a sock puppet scapegoat account to try and get out of taking accountability seems like a strange way of going about it, but okay. Cait was dropped by her publishing company, which seems like a no-brainer considering the fact that she was actively trying to drive down their sales by review bombing one of their authors, and then accidentally drove down their sales even more by tanking her own reputation. I'm by no means an expert in the industry, yet. But one thing I've learned from my experience thus far is that publishing is an incredibly collaborative process. It's one that not only creates, but demands a strong sense of community. You get to a certain level in publishing and everyone kind of knows everyone else, and that means, to some extent, they're all kind of rooting for each other. The publishing world isn't some utopia where everyone's best friends all the time, but you do have to get along with others if you want to make it far. You have to play nice, and you have to be professional. Cait, if nothing else, was wildly unprofessional. One day, I want to make a more comprehensive video about the pros and cons of emerging as a writer from fandom spaces, because it's an interesting topic that I rarely see discussed with as much nuance as it deserves, but today all I'm gonna say is that the real world is not AO3. Sabotaging other people's careers to uplift your own is not just petty fandom drama, and you can't miscribe to your way out of consequences. Cait was a snake. We see it, we know it. However, the issues with racism in the publishing industry go far deeper than one bad actor, and you can't get rid of it just by taking away one person's book deal. I worry that people might get so caught up in the euphoria of dunking on Cait, thereby proving how comparatively unracist they are, that the systemic issues that the story exposes will end up going unexplored. Why was what Cait did racist? Do I think she was motivated by hatred for people of color? No. When she says she was motivated by deep insecurity and mental illness, I believe it. However, the fact that she was willing to build herself up to the direct detriment of these other authors shows a sense of entitlement. Cait felt she was owed success. More success than she thought she was going to get naturally, and definitely more success than she thought the other authors she was debuting with were going to get. What's especially twisted about the Cait Corrain situation is how prominent characters of color seem to be in her work. She has a brown-skinned woman on the cover, she had brown OCs as her Twitter header for a while, she went out of her way to commission a black artist to draw a different black OC of hers, and just in general, she seemed to be going out of her way to make sure that her book was racially inclusive, diverse, and that she, Cait Corrain, was an ally. And she, Cait Corrain, white person extraordinaire, deserved to make money with these characters of color more so than actual people of color writing similarly diverse works. Everyone's talking about Cait now because the levels of clownery she stooped to are beyond easy to disavow. What she did was laughably, uniquely terrible. But what about the racism that isn't as easy to point and laugh at? What about racism that doesn't stem from one person, that's tucked quietly behind the scenes? What about all the white authors who are genuine allies but nonetheless continue to benefit from white privilege? Their success doesn't come to the detriment of people of colors the way Cait's would have. Does it? Does it not? It isn't quite a zero-sum game, but historically white authors have made up the vast majority of those being published, and they don't exactly want to make up less, not if it keeps their book in particular off shelves. It's one thing to look at the numbers and to acknowledge as a simple fact that white authors are disproportionately represented. It's another thing to go on Twitter and post about how we need more hashtag Odin voices and play hashtag diverse book bingo every year. It's another thing entirely, and a much more painful one, for a white author to sit down and realize that not only are they at least a tiny part of the problem, if only one snowflake in the blizzard, but that this problem is beyond their capacity to solve. Racism obviously isn't a problem that any individual has the power to solve. What I'm saying here is that even the best, most talented, most well-intentioned white authors are still white authors. The time, resources, and attention given to them while they create potentially amazing works featuring characters of color could be going to people of color, and it generally isn't. It seems like a real damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, doesn't it? If you don't include characters of color in your work, you're a racist. But if you do include characters of color in your work and you benefit from that opportunity that was given to you as opposed to an author of color, Isn't that kind of racist too? It's not wrong for white people to write books and want them published. It's not even wrong for them to write those books about characters of color from those perspectives and to make money off of them. It is cultural appropriation, sure, but appropriation is not the end of the world. It can be offensive, the same way that men writing from a female perspective can get real offensive real fast, #r/men writing women, but that doesn't mean it should be avoided at all costs, just that people should be thoughtful. I think what readers and authors of color want the most from white authors is for them to develop a sense of perspective, to recognize the ways that authors of color are systemically disadvantaged within the industry, to recognize their own internal biases and how those could come leaking out in what they intended to be a positive portrayal, and most of all, to be aware of the fact that they, as an author, no matter how well-intentioned, cannot solve this problem on their own, even if they write the best book of all time. Having a diverse cast of characters is great, but diversity on the page is not enough. We need diversity behind the pen. We need diversity in the publishing houses. We need a lot more Bethany Baptiste, Camila Coles, Frances Whites, Molly X. Changs, Acure Phoenixes, KMN Wrights, RM Virtues, and far fewer Cait Corrains. But Cait Corrain herself is not the problem. But racial diversity isn't the only kind of diversity. We need more books by female authors too, and LGBT authors, and disabled authors, and what if they just so happen to also be white? I think this situation with Cait Corrain also provides us a little insight into this question. Now, where exactly do Bethany Baptiste and the Poisons We Drink come in? Well, you see, she was one of the authors Cait targeted, and not only that, but when she spoke out about the situation, rightfully so, it led to her being called out for ableism. So after the review bombing had been discovered, but before it was definitively known to have been done by Cait, Bethany Baptiste made a tweet about the situation, including the phrase, "Debut authors have to deal with an albino snake in the henhouse." A snake in the henhouse?
Well, one of us has to change.
For those of you who don't know, this is just a phrase people use in the South, and it has nothing to do with albinism or actual people who have it. The problem with an albino snake in the henhouse is not that the snake is albino, it's that it's a snake in the henhouse and snakes eat hens. If I had to guess, the word albino is probably in there because an albino snake might be harder to spot or it's just unexpected to see. Presumably not knowing this, Meredith Mooring, an author with albinism and a friend of Cait's, decided to make this all about her, despite the fact that she had not engaged publicly with the drama at this point, so there was no real reason to assume it was, but I mean, hey, if the snakeskin boot fits. So Meredith basically subtweeted about Bethany and claimed she didn't want to call anyone out, but also didn't really try to resolve it privately first, and this led to a bunch of people on Twitter calling Bethany ableist, and then articles started calling Bethany ableist because people were looking into the Cait Corrain thing, and they ended up just sort of tarring all the debut authors with the same brush, which is absurd. So really this just meant that Bethany had to deal with a whole extra mess on top of everything that Cait Corrain was already putting her through, as if that wasn't enough. Withcindy has a whole video about this controversy that I'll have linked in the description, and there's one thing in particular she said about the Bethany fallout that really stuck with me. In addition to calling the reaction to Bethany instead of to Cait a deflection from the main issue, she went on to say that this is just another example of how systematically white women love to just weaponize any crumb of marginalization or victimhood that they have in order to deflect from accountability. This is a phenomenon I have definitely noticed as a person of color just going about my life, and in particular interacting on online spaces that have a lot of LGBT or neurodivergent people that aren't also people of color, but I don't see a lot of people talk about it. So I was really excited to see a big YouTuber like Sydney. I keep wanting to say Sydney instead of Cindy, but that's not her name. Cindy bring this to the forefront. I will add that while white women are sort of uniquely poised to take advantage of this kind of behavior, it is not unique to them. Now, I do believe that being marginalized in one way makes it easier to empathize with people who've been marginalized in different ways, but it's not a get out of introspection free card. You know, being gay doesn't mean you can't be ableist, being disabled doesn't mean you can't be homophobic. I'm just now realizing that, like, if I put the right kind of music behind this, it could be like a twisted, awful inspirational speech or like a political ad. I'm autistic, and every time I see pronouns in someone's bio, I throw up in my mouth. I can't drive because my eyes don't work all the way, but even I can see that gay marriage is a sin. Hi, I'm the worst disabled person you know, and I'm running for governor. Together, we can do anything. Just because you're disabled doesn't mean you're not able to take a stand against the gay agenda. That sounds ridiculous, right? But I was was watching a video from I'm Autistic Now What the other day, and she mentioned in the pinned comments how common it is for people on the spectrum to also be LGBT, and someone responded, "Do not mix autism with LGBTQ gaga. We are different, not sick." All caps. Which just goes to show how quick some marginalized people are to separate themselves from people who've been marginalized for reasons that they think are less important or even justifiable. I am glad that that commenter at least recognized the fact that Gaga is in fact mother. Now, this is a hard pill to swallow, and it's definitely not something I wanted to admit, especially when I was younger and just starting to think about race and justice and that sort of thing, but being marginalized does not inherently make you a better person. We have this need inside ourselves to tell ourselves that we are better than our oppressors, to try and make sense of our suffering so that it isn't just pain. And to that end, we tell ourselves that we are better because of what we've gone through. We're stronger because of this. We understand the world and others better because of what we have been through. We tell ourselves that we could never be like them. But some of us are just them with less power. I have known Latinos who are so certain that they would never be racist if they were white, and it's like, bitch, you're racist now. You don't like Puerto Ricans and you're Mexican. You would not be a conductor on the Underground Railroad. Sit your ass down. No one wants to think of themselves as a bad person, and especially not as an oppressor, least of all people who actually have been oppressed. When you have been victimized, the last thing you ever want to do is to make other people feel the pain that you did. That makes it all the more terrifying to admit that you have the potential to cause someone harm in that way. And that's why a lot of us don't do it. That's why it's so tempting to be like, well, yes, racism is bad, but so is ableism, and I deal with that, and it's the same thing, basically, so I know what it's like. So my grievances are just as important in this conversation, so I can't be racist, so I can't be part of the problem. I have problems too. Me. To be clear, I don't think any of that was going through Meredith Mooring's head when she made her tweets, and for the record, she did apologize and Bethany accepted the apology, so obviously don't send hate to anyone involved in this. This is just one example of a far more pervasive way of thinking that anyone can fall prey to if they don't check themselves. Suffering is inherent to the human condition. Even the most privileged person on earth is gonna die one day, hopefully soon in a burning Tesla while millions of people point and laugh, but that's besides the point. The point is, we all suffer something, and deep down, we all want that suffering acknowledged. It's a natural impulse. We have a need to be understood. The problem is that when we admit that someone else has it worse, it might make us feel like our pain doesn't matter at all, like it's lesser and therefore meaningless. So then we might feel compelled to double down to protect the sanctity of our pain, even if it means ignoring or even making others worse. To be clear, this is not me saying that if you're mean to your oppressors, you're just as bad as they are. That would obviously be ridiculous and pretty hypocritical, considering like 5 seconds ago I joked about Elon Musk burning like a marshmallow on a pyre of his own devising. My point is, prejudice plus power is a uniquely dangerous combination that should never go unaddressed, and no, that address is not always going to take the form of peace and love, ooh. However, prejudice in and of itself is poisonous. It poisons whoever holds it and makes it that much easier for someone to forget the humanity of others. Prejudice is a weapon. Not all who wield it are equally dangerous, but all who wield it are equally corrupted. We are all human, we all suffer, we can all be corrupted, we can all be part of the problem. Daily affirmations, anyone? All this to say, white authors, you are not the be-all, end-all of the problem. TM. But you're damn sure not the solution. Share the stage, share the spotlight, share the love. This video is about love. Sponsored by My Generous Heart. Can't even say that with a straight face. So why is the poisons we drink so high on this list? After all, Bethany Baptiste was not the only author Cait review bombed, so what makes this such an anticipated read for me? Once again, we return to the power of premise. This is a YA fantasy novel about a world populated by humans and witchers, where a teenage girl has to brew love potions illegally to support herself and her younger sister. She also later gets a chance to avenge her dead mother, which leads to her being drawn deeper and deeper into the corrupt side of this magical world. I think this could be an excellent setup for some inventive commentary on drug trafficking and the stereotypes that surround it. Like I said, with the eyes are the best part. I love it when authors of color are able to tackle real issues, but to do it in a fun and fantastical way that's hopefully creatively fulfilling for them as well. Also, for the record, this one is not being published by Penguin Random House. You can get The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste from Sourcebooks starting March 5th, 2024. Number 1. You probably lost track and thought that was number 1, didn't you? Nope. But don't worry, my most anticipated read is not going to be my longest talked about read, but it is, in fact, Anita Deonte Last by Xochitl Gonzalez. When I decided to make this video, I went back to reread the Publisher Weekly article to refresh my memory about those books that I saw and the ones I was particularly excited about, but I did not need a reminder about this. I've been thinking about this since October. It was actually listed in the article as Anita Deonte at the time, which I guess could have been a mistake on Publisher Weekly's part, which would be really funny considering it's a thing for publishers. If the editor's messed up, that'd be fun. But more likely they've just changed the title since then. If it is a title change, it's definitely one that I approve of. I think adding the last bit adds a lot of personality. The book is set to come out on March 5th, 2024 from Macmillan Publishers. They are one of the big 5 trade publishers in the US, but at this point, I will take what I can get. Without even knowing the full title, I was still intrigued by this book. It's a dark academia novel about an art history student who feels out of place among her more privileged peers and chooses to do her thesis on Anita Deonte, an artist who died under mysterious circumstances about a decade earlier. After all I just said about racism in the publishing industry, I'm sure I don't need to spend any more time explaining why seeing a woman of color write about women of color in academia, another sphere where systemic racism runs rampant, is so exciting to me. For a genre called dark academia, the characters tend to be pretty white, and the dark side of academia, which involves a lot of racism, tends to go unexamined. I can see Anita Deonte Last playing in similar territory as Mexican Gothic, in the sense that they're both featuring Latina characters in genres that they wouldn't usually be. I hope this hits it big like Mexican Gothic. I hope Xochitl Gonzalez blows dark academia book talk's tits clean off. I hope she sells a bajillion copies. I hope every white boy that I know was talking over her in college gets a sore throat today. That's right, quiet down and lozenge up. We don't need to hear from you right now. Get well soon. I am always ready to see a Latino win, and I am so excited. I want great things for Xochitl Gonzalez. I feel like I should say something in Spanish, it was like a show of Latina solidarity, but I don't actually know that much Spanish, and every time I try to start speaking it, like 3 words into the sentence, I'm speaking Russian, so instead I'm just going to use a phrase that I do know very well, having heard it constant times at home. Que la chingada away. I know that. I know puta, and I know chisme. Speaking of chisme, which means gossip, what book will I not be reading in 2024? The obvious guess, of course, would be Crown of Starlight by Cait Corrain, and some of you probably right now are thinking, Solaris, if I have to hear the word systemic, marginalization, or Cait Corrain again, I'm gonna put a bullet through your Cait Corrain, and that would be fair, but that's not the book I'm talking about. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to read it either, but I probably wouldn't have ever picked it up anyway. I'm not big on the myth retellings, and all the signs point to this one having been fairly, shall we say, lore Olympus coded. However, there is one book coming out this year by an author that I've already mentioned by name in this video that I am rabidly curious about, that I nonetheless am not going to read. And that book is Until August by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. You got clickbaited, bitch. I mean, not really, because I did talk about the thing that you were expecting me to talk about, but I didn't talk about it when you expected me to talk about it. Get got. So why won't I read Until August? Gabriel Garcia Marquez is one of my favorite authors. The first thing I ever read by him was Chronicle of a Death Foretold when I was in high school, and that literature class I was in was my awakening. I had this amazing sense of exhilaration being introduced to all these works and stories, but I also experienced this odd sense of betrayal that so much of my academic life had been spent talking in circles about the same handful of works by American and British authors when there were artists out there like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Nabokov and Borges pushing the limits of what literature could be. 100 Years of Solitude was my favorite novel for years. I'm not going to pretend I understand its every intricacy, but there's something to be said about a novel that's just so self-evidently beautiful and fascinating that you're drawn in even when you don't have a fucking clue what's going on. To me, the dividing line between a clever novel and a work of genius is that genius does not demand to be understood on the artist's terms in order to be enjoyed. It's an open world that the reader can explore, coming away with whatever meanings they divine. There are near infinite intended meanings that the author put in there beneath the surface, but if you don't want to pick at every comma, semicolon, and syllable, there's still a story to enjoy, an experience to be changed by. Is this just me vaguing at long-dead Russian author Vladimir Nabokov and the fact that if you don't play his literary game exactly the way he intended, 9 times out of 10 with his books, you will just straight up not be having a good time and also probably be tormented by visions of him laughing at you from the grave? Maybe. Coincidentally, there's also a Nabokov novel that I'm avoiding for the same reason I won't read until August. Towards the end of his life, Nabokov was working on one last manuscript that he never got the chance to finish. Before his death, he asked his wife and son to burn it. They did not do that. 32 years after Nabokov's death, in 2009, the original Laura hit shelves worldwide. Yay! I have complicated feelings about these unwanted posthumous publications. On the one hand, what the dead don't know won't hurt them, right? And maybe Dmitry Nabokov, who was alive after all at the time of the original Laura's publication, maybe he benefited in some way. At the very least, you'd think he'd benefit financially, although I can't imagine he was hurting for money. Maybe as he neared the end of his own life, Dmitry started to reflect on his father's death in new ways, and he had a different perspective on his unfinished work and a desire to share it before he lost that opportunity too. After all, Dmitry was a writer as well, which I'm sure gave that unfinished manuscript of his late father additional poignancy for him. Apparently, Dmitry wrote under a pen name that to this day is a secret, and that drives me wild. I want to know. Where is my dark academia novel about unraveling the secrets of Dmitry Nabokov? Do I have to write it myself? I should not be allowed to write it myself. If I write it myself, my self-insert character will have a horrible Phantom of the Opera-esque relationship with the ghost of Dmitry's dad, and I am surprised that the Nabokov estate did not, strike me dead for saying that out loud. Although, if the Nabokov estate had any idea what I did, said, thought, and had the ability to punish me for it, y'all would have been invited to my beheading a long time ago. One thing I want to make clear is that I have no animosity towards the family of authors who do these posthumous publications. I'm sure they have their reasons, and I'm sure they've thought about those reasons a hell of a lot harder than I have. However, while Nabokov the man is obviously no worse for the wear now that the original of Laura is out there, what does it mean for Nabokov the author and his literary legacy? What does it mean for Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who was dealing with dementia as he wrote until August and ultimately didn't want it published? I can't answer that question, and that means I, in good conscience, can't read these books. I just can't justify it, no matter how curious I am, and believe me, George wishes he could be as curious as me. There is a part of me just frothing at the bit at the thought that I could go to Barnes & Noble in 2024, presumably someday in August, that seems like the obvious marketing move, and pick up a brand new book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I want it so badly, you guys. But the one thing that I want even more is to be an author myself. My dreams have been shaped so strongly by authors like Nabokov and Gabriel Garcia Marquez that I want to honor their legacy, and to me, that means not reading books that they never intended to be part of that legacy. Like I said, I definitely understand being curious about the book and what it means to respect an author's legacy and what that legacy even is and what it consists of. That's an open-ended question. I will not be reading until August, but if you want to read the book, it is being published by... From that moment on began a ceaseless 3-day howling, which was so terrible that it was impossible to hear it without horror even through 2 closed doors. Just kidding. That's actually a quote from The Death of Ivan Ilyich. I have the Paverin Volahonsky translation, which is from Vintage Classics, which is actually an imprint of Random House. Yes, that is the same Random House that you hear at the end of Penguin Random House. It's the Penguin's house and we're just the randoms that live in it. I just want to make it clear that not every single book on the face of the earth is put out by Penguin Random House. Every single book on the face of the earth is actually put out by either Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Macmillan, or Scholastic. Obviously, each of these huge companies have a million different imprints, but the houses themselves tend to have a particular slant. If I was reading more upcoming sci-fi releases, for example, you'd probably be seeing a lot more Macmillan on here, particularly from their Tor imprint. However, Penguin and Random House tends to skew towards the literary fiction side of things, and that's what gets me really excited, so that's why you see so much of it on this list. Does the publishing industry have a monopoly problem? Yes, but it's not quite as dire as you might expect hearing me list off all the imprints of Penguin Random House in this video. At least not yet. They're working on it. I've been Solar Santa Ea, and if you would also like to be Solar Santa Ea, you can like, comment, and subscribe to join my hive mind. It's the closest you can ever get to wielding the divine power of Penguin Random House. Or you can just subscribe to see whatever new videos I put out. I'm currently working on a script about John Green and the punitive politics of the internet, so if that seems like something you want to see, stay tuned. And stay sneaky.